June 22, 1941. Mark it down, this date is etched in the books of history. Before Pearl Harbor shocked America, before D-Day turned the tide, this was the date that changed everything. It was a pivotal moment that set the stage for the brutal conflict that followed. Operation Barbarossa, the massive invasion of the Soviet Union, began at dawn. The early morning light witnessed the start of a colossal military endeavor. Over 3 million German soldiers, alongside allies from Romania, Hungary, even Finland, surged across the border. It was a coordinated assault of unprecedented scale. Their target, the heart of communist Russia, the prize Hitler craved above all else. The vast expanse of the Soviet Union was now in their crosshairs. This wasn't just a military campaign, it was an ideological crusade. Hitler's vision extended beyond mere conquest. Hitler believed in Lebensraum, living space for the German people, to be carved out of the East. This was central to his expansionist policies. He saw the Soviets as racially inferior, ripe for conquest. This belief fueled the ferocity of the invasion. The scale was breathtaking, the largest invasion in human history. The sheer number of troops and resources involved was staggering. The world held its breath. Nations watched anxiously, aware that the outcome could reshape the global order. Would this be the final terrible act of a war already engulfing the globe? The uncertainty was palpable. Or would it be the beginning of something even worse? The stakes had never been higher, and the world braced for the unknown. Why attack Russia? Hitler, drunk on early victories, saw the Soviet Union as a colossus with feet of clay. Stalin's purges had decimated the Red Army officer corps, their equipment was thought to be outdated, and Hitler, ever the gambler, believed he could win before winter set in. He coveted the vast resources of the East: oil, grain, minerals. These would fuel his war machine, making Germany an unstoppable empire. Ideology played a part too. Hitler loathed communism, seeing it as a Jewish conspiracy. Destroying the Soviet Union was as much about crushing an ideology as it was about conquering land. But in this gamble, Hitler would stake everything, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. The initial assault was devastating. The Lightning War, perfected against France, ripped through Soviet lines. Panzer divisions, spearheaded by the legendary Tiger tanks, exploited gaps, encircled entire armies. The Luftwaffe, the German Air Force, ruled the skies, bombing cities and strafing fleeing refugees. Soviet leadership was caught flat-footed. Stalin, despite warnings from his own intelligence, refused to believe Hitler would attack so soon. The result was chaos. Millions of Soviet soldiers were captured or killed in the first months. The road to Moscow, Leningrad, the very heart of the Soviet Union, seemed to lay open. The world watched in horror. Was this the end of the Soviet experiment? Had Hitler, the madman, pulled it off? But the Germans had made a fatal miscalculation. They had underestimated the sheer size of Russia. The vast distances, the muddy roads that turned into impassable bogs after rain swallowed up their advance. Supplies dwindled. The vaunted German logistics, stretched thin, couldn't keep up. And then there were the Russians themselves. The initial shock wore off. A new toughness emerged, born of desperation. Soviet soldiers, though poorly equipped, fought with incredible tenacity. They were defending their motherland, and they would fight for every inch of it. This wasn't France rolling over in defeat. This was Russia, a land accustomed to hardship, and they were just getting warmed up. Winter is coming, the Soviet weather weapon. As 1941 bled into winter, a new enemy joined the fight, the Russian winter. Temperatures plummeted, reaching unimaginable lows. German equipment designed for the milder climates of Western Europe froze solid. Tanks wouldn't start, guns jammed. The German soldiers in their summer uniforms froze in their foxholes. The Soviets, used to such conditions, were better prepared. They were equipped with warmer clothing, their tanks designed to operate in extreme cold. They even used skis to outmaneuver the frostbitten Germans. The bitter cold, as much as Soviet bullets, began to take its toll. The invincible Wehrmacht was now on the defensive, fighting not just the Red Army, but the very elements themselves. The people's fight, partisans and scorched earth. Behind the lines, another battle raged. Ordinary Soviet citizens, men and women, young and old, took up arms as partisans. They ambushed German patrols, sabotaged infrastructure, and provided intelligence to the Red Army. They were a constant thorn in the side of the occupiers, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The Soviets also employed a brutal but effective tactic: scorched earth. As they retreated, they destroyed everything: factories, crops, even entire villages. The idea was to leave nothing for the advancing Germans, to starve them out. It was a cruel strategy, one that inflicted immense suffering on the civilian population, but it played a crucial role in slowing down the German advance. Leningrad, a city under siege. Nowhere was the suffering greater than in Leningrad, today's St. Petersburg. The city, a cultural jewel, was surrounded by the Germans in September 1941. What followed was one of the most horrific sieges in human history. For almost 900 days the city was cut off from the outside world. Food ran out. People ate pets, rats, even wallpaper paste to survive. Hundreds of thousands died from starvation, disease, and the relentless German bombardment. Yet, Leningrad refused to fall. Its citizens, their spirits unbroken, endured unimaginable horrors, their resistance a symbol of Soviet defiance. The city on the Neva River became a symbol of suffering, but also of indomitable human will. Moscow, the prize denied. The German plan hinged on capturing Moscow, the Soviet capital, before the harsh winter set in. They believed that taking the city would break Soviet morale and force a surrender, effectively ending the war on the Eastern Front. In October 1941, they launched a massive offensive, Operation Typhoon, aimed at taking the city and securing a decisive victory. But the Soviets were ready for them. They had fortified the city extensively, turning it into an impenetrable fortress. Fresh troops transferred from Siberia arrived, accustomed to fighting in the brutal cold and ready to defend their capital. The Germans, exhausted, frostbitten, and with their supply lines stretched to the breaking point, were met with fierce and unyielding resistance. In December 1941, the Soviet army launched a powerful counteroffensive, driving the Germans back from the gates of Moscow. It was a significant turning point in the war. The myth of German invincibility was shattered, and the tide of the war began to turn. The road to Moscow, once seemingly open, was now littered with the frozen corpses of Hitler's ambitions, marking the beginning of the end for the German advance. Barbarossa's bloody toll. A catastrophe unfolds. By the end of 1941, Operation Barbarossa, conceived as a lightning strike to knock the Soviet Union out of the war, had failed. The cost had been staggering. Millions of soldiers on both sides lay dead. The Soviet Union, though bloodied and battered, was still fighting. And the German army, having suffered its first major defeat, was now bogged down in a war of attrition it could not win. The true horror of Barbarossa lay not just in the battlefield casualties, but in the unimaginable brutality unleashed on the Eastern Front. The Nazis, fueled by racist ideology, treated the Soviet people with unspeakable cruelty. Massacres of civilians, particularly Jews, were commonplace. Prisoner of war camps became death camps where millions perished from starvation, disease, and overwork. The tide turns, from Barbarossa to Stalingrad. Operation Barbarossa marked a turning point in World War II. It was the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany. The Eastern Front, a meat grinder of unimaginable brutality, would consume German manpower and resources for the rest of the war. The Soviet Union, though devastated by the initial onslaught, had survived. It would rebuild its army, becoming a military superpower in its own right. The victory at Stalingrad in 1943, a year after the horrors of Barbarossa, would mark the turning of the tide. From that point on, the Red Army, fueled by vengeance and a burning desire to liberate their homeland, would push the Germans back, all the way to Berlin. Echoes of Barbarossa, a legacy of brutality and resilience. Operation Barbarossa remains a chilling reminder of the horrors of war and the dangers of totalitarian ideologies. It was a campaign marked by unprecedented violence and cruelty. The scale of the invasion was immense, stretching across thousands of miles, and the brutality inflicted on the Soviet people was beyond comprehension. The sheer number of lives lost, both military and civilian, serve as a stark warning from history about the devastating consequences of unchecked aggression. Yet, from the ashes of this catastrophe, a story of resilience emerged. We also see the incredible resilience of the human spirit as the Soviet people, facing unimaginable hardship, never gave up. They united in their struggle and fought back inch by inch, village by village, until they had driven the invaders from their land, reclaiming their homes and their dignity. Operation Barbarossa, a testament to human folly and the perils of hubris, is also a testament to human courage and determination. It highlights the enduring power of hope and the unbreakable will to survive. It is a story that continues to resonate today, reminding us of the past, a reminder of the fragility of peace and the cost of conflict. It underscores the importance of vigilance in the face of tyranny and the need to cherish and protect our hard-won freedoms.